So, welcome back to the 1760 sessions where we talk to founders building systems and impact. I'm Harry from 1760, and today I'm joined by Ken Kaufman, co founder of AccruDent. Ken, as a background, has spent over 20 years as a CFO and president at venture backed and private equity backed organizations across dental, including the sale of Arabax's Nomad handheld x ray businesses to Cavacur and 7 years at Community Dental Partners through a tripling of the company. He is the co-author of Financial Secrets to Grow Dental Organizations, founder of the Dental Finance Forum, host of the Dental Truth Project, and currently writing his second book, which is called Roll the Equity, on how dental founders sell their DSOs. Ken, have I missed anything off in that introduction?
You nailed it. It was beautiful.
Love to hear it. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you. I'm thrilled to be on your show and just excited for this conversation.
Good, good. I've been looking forward to having you since we last spoke. So, to kick off with, I wanted to dive into the origin story because that's what I think is really powerful coming from yourself. How did you and your son actually decide to build AccruDent together? When did you first cross paths and think this is going to be an awesome idea?
It was quite an interesting way that it came together. But what happened was I was at a place where I knew I wanted to make a change or transition. And I didn't know that my son was in the same place. And so we were talking about some things, and he was just graduating or about to graduate in cybersecurity from university. And he looked around and realized that most of the job opportunities aren't, they might sound like really exciting, but it's pretty boring stuff. You're like working for the IRS or, things like that. And he said, I really want to build something of my own. Just as we were having this conversation. And I said, well, that's kind of interesting because I'm ready to like step out and go do something on my own. Maybe we should talk about if we should do something together. And so that just started a conversation. And we looked at all kinds of things. We looked at franchises, like we looked at
Oh,
all
wow.
different types of things, but we just knew that we wanted to work together and figure it out.
That's fantastic. A father and son mission and project. I'm excited for you guys. So I think you mentioned on the last call, and it stuck with me. You told him you had about 10 years left, and the words you used were of crank and go. Where does that come from?
Um, when you're going to start a business or you're going to build a business, it it just takes time. And honestly, the way to win is to just be the last one standing once it's all said and done. And my philosophy very much is we're building this thing, we're going 100 miles an hour, we're going to make this thing happen. And the way that you win in business is by not quitting.
Yeah, yeah.
Already in just the first couple of years we've been up and doing this, we've seen so many come and go. And so, yeah, for us, that's kind of and sorry, going back to your question, what I told my son was, "Hey, look, I know I have at least 10 solid years of like crank and go and build and develop. And then after that, I'm probably going to want to like stop for a minute and decide, do I still want to be full-time go, or maybe do I want to back off a little bit?" So I just wanted to make sure there was an expectation that I wouldn't work forever.
Yeah, of course. But you know what happens when you found a business? It's hard to let it go. But it would be nice if you're in a position 10 years from now, the business has grown and you can step back into an advisory role, let your son take the reins fully. And it would be nice for you just to have a watchful eye over it.
Yep.
So we spoke
I
about
think my wife might just challenge you and say, I might even say that that's what I'm going to do, but the proof's in the pudding, and she's she'll be right either way.
she's probably looking forward to all those holidays you're going to treat her to after
That
the 10 years.
that's right.
So I feel like we're in a market today, well, today's world, where it's more and more acceptable, more and more easy to branch out and do your own thing because I just see around me so many different startups popping up, solving different problems. And then the startup world bounding together and hiring people in on contract basis to do different roles with different perspectives. And it's almost like a community to grow with among other small businesses. I don't know if that's anything you're seeing on your end.
Absolutely. And, just the advent of AI is creating all kinds of founder opportunities. And honestly, a bunch of the stuff that is being built right now is probably not that good, but that's how development works, right? And so
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of opportunity for startups right now, and there's an appetite in the marketplace for it.
Yeah. I think what you're saying just then around some of it not being as good as it's perceived to be, probably. I'll tell you what, I've worked in a few different software businesses and I can't remember, there wasn't once where the tech worked smoothly. And I think that's just ongoing problems.
Yeah.
So during your history of your background, you started a business before. What happened there and what did it teach you going into AccruDent?
Yeah. When I graduated from college, I really had a passion to start my own business and do my own thing. And so I jumped into that, graduated from college and started to set up shop. And I pushed really, really hard for about half of a year and then kind of had the come to Jesus meeting where I looked at everything and said, you know what? I haven't really made much progress. Like when I look back at this
Yeah.
and I realized that it wasn't working out. Funds were low. I borrowed money from my father to he was gracious enough to be my sponsor, and so I ended up having to just ultimately kind of give up on the dream at that moment, and had to go get a job and start figuring out how to pay my dad back.
So how did you end up in okay, so you did your MBA in entrepreneurship, so it's always been there. And then how did you end up taking the finance route? And then how did you end up taking the dental route beyond that?
Yeah, that's a great question. When I finished my MBA at the University of Georgia, I worked for a Fortune 500 company for a year, and it was okay, but I didn't love it. And I found an opportunity with a construction company that at the moment was just exploding. They hired me, didn't even know what my skill set was, but we really quickly figured out that I understood the finances better than anybody else, and so I became kind of a self-taught CFO as I
Yeah.
was trying to solve the financial problems of that business. I was basically also teaching myself how to do it.
Okay, wow. And what makes the dentistry industry different to any other industry that you've seen, and what's your pull towards it?
Yeah, so for there's so many things that make, dentistry, unique. The main one that comes to my mind as we're talking about this is everything is super small. So, like, when you're gonna count inventory at the end of the year and you have a bunch of stainless steel crowns that are like these tiny little things, it's just everything is small because 'cause it's gotta fit inside of inside of the mouth, and sometimes there are some challenges, making sure that patients are obviously being taken care of properly and, just because it's in such a small everything's in such a small space.
Right. And for the listeners today who are outside the industry, can you explain what consolidation in dental actually looks like right now?
Sure. So before COVID, there started to be a decent amount of consolidation, but then that all kind of slowed down dramatically. There's now starting to be more and more consolidation, and the way that I like to, or the comparison I like to share with this on this, Harry, is that in banking, you always like somebody decides, "Hey, I'm gonna start a bank," and they get a charter and and now all of a sudden you have this bank and maybe it's a community bank or something like that. And then they grow and they more spawn off, and then some people break off from that and go and build more. And in dentistry, it's the same thing. A dentist Sometimes you'll have a dentist that just works, graduates from college or from school. They work inside their own practice that they own, but In today's day, that's it's not as common as it has been, and more dentists are looking coming out of school are looking at, taking associate, roles and not necessarily owning part of the practice. And what's happening is private equity and other financial sponsors are seeing that, hey, dentistry is a good business. There's opportunity here, and so we see larger and larger groups being put together, and private equity and other financial sponsors coming in and monetizing those businesses.
Okay. And with that, AccruDent's sweet spot is the emerging DSO at, say, 5 to 20 locations.
That's
Why is
right.
specifically the make or break stage for enterprise value in the dentistry industry?
Well, that's a brilliant question, Harry. So, um, when you have a dentist who has one location, one practice, right? It's just them. Then they say, "Hey, I want to do a second one. Hey, I want to do a third one." And what happens in this is, most people that go to dental school don't have a business background, and there's a lot of things that have to be taken care of and fixed and handled. And so, what at AccruDent, what we're on the mission to do is we're trying to help those emerging DSOs that are trying to grow from 1 to 2 locations up to maybe 20 or 25 locations, and we're trying to help them financially navigate the path to get to where, they can have a very profitable business if they do it the right way.
Okay. So you walk into five locations into a new five location group on day one. What is the first thing that you see that's broken?
Wow, there's so many options, like, I don't even know how to pick one. Um, I would say that most likely, uh, you you have somebody at a front desk who isn't really engaging with the patient when they come, and because, every business needs to create an experience, and if you choose to not create an experience, you're still creating an experience, it's just a really bad one. And so, I think that a lot of dental practices struggle just right there at that first point of contact when they go in. Most people are scared or afraid or have some anxiety around dentistry. There's such an opportunity for that first interaction to just start to chip away at things that, might be, feel anxiety ridden in a dental practice.
Never even thought of that. And then I just reflect on my life. I've just come off of having Invisalign, probably last year. And I'd walk in there, always nervous. There's a certain smell in the dentist, and it's like, okay, this is what I'm about to go through. Lady on the desk was rather nice, sat down, had a bottle of water, and I thought, actually, no, this is not a bad experience. I've known the dentist for years. He comes in and says hello, and that's a good experience. But I can imagine if it's the other way around, then it can put people off. And I get the anxiety piece. Very interesting you talk about this. I had a lady on the podcast not too long ago called Sarah Clark Consulting, and she consults medical practices. And just like you explained, from the she looks at the entire practice from when you leave to when you exit and everything in between. And it always starts with that first interaction of how is that person doing and how are they portraying the business when someone walks in the door. But then you don't also know what's affecting that person's day. So there's loads that goes into it.
Yeah, it's the human element, and it's one piece of dentistry that I really like because it takes a lot of humans to be
Yeah.
able to serve these humans that have issues or challenges or, need help with the things that are happening in their mouth. And so, honestly, the best of the best organizations, they're the ones who develop really, really strong, sticky cultures,
Yeah.
and they just figure out what that patient avatar is, and they just crush it with that group, whatever it is. If it's somebody that's just gonna do Invisalign or if they just need a checkup or whatever.
Okay. Have you got any examples of this, of where someone's actually got the nail on the head?
Oh, yeah, unfortunately, I think there are more that haven't figured this out, but it's when the doctors, because ultimately the doctors are the producers inside of the dental practice, right? And when those doctors get really clear on what they're good at and what they want to do and how they can best serve patients, that's when you start to crush it, because now all of a sudden you can do a bunch of marketing because you know what the doctors are going to be doing with the patients. And so they now all of a sudden you can be really, really clear. But it's funny. Some people open up a dental practice and they just kind of do some of everything. And all of a sudden they become just kind of blah in terms of their brand and their culture and everything else. And so all of a sudden they're not really attracting people that want to work for them. They're not attracting many patients. And so, one of my favorite phrases is, the riches are in the niches. And so even a dentist needs to be able to build a practice that's niched in some way that's going to be highly valuable for some group of people that have those needs.
Do you know what? I have this conversation so often about how important ICP is. Just being able to be a recognizable face for that person going through a specific problem, for them to come to you. Also, all of your marketing, all of the feel of your business can be designed to that specific person. And you want to, yeah, I'm trying to articulate it well, but you want to have your practice come in a way that best portrays you as either as a person, as a doctor, or as the practice in general, but not being too general is what I see. And that's to your point of trying to do too much at once. Okay. So what do founders at the stage of, 5 new locations underestimate about what it takes to keep scaling, do you think?
There's this thought of, well, okay, so we've got 5 locations, so now let's just go to 6. But the challenge is, and if we go back to like what we were talking about, the software that never was really fully functioning, um, you break stuff. I mean, I've been in a lot of high growth companies, and over time, like things start to break, and and sometimes you need to just break it yourself so that you can put it back together in a way that's going to work. And so when you say, "Oh, I've got 5 locations and I want to go to 10," I'm going to tell you, like, it is not a linear path to, "Hey, here's what we did with these first 5. Let's just do the same thing over again." It gets inordinately more complicated and more difficult.
Okay. So it's all about, you trying to say that you need to change as you launch or as you take on a new practice, and it's don't get stuck in the weeds of what you're already doing. Is that what you're trying to say? Just want to make sure I get that.
It's not get stuck in the weeds, but also realize that there's a lot of nuance. Like what you did to get to 5 locations is not going to work to get you to 10. You've got to break stuff, and you're going to have to do things differently in order to accomplish that.
Very interesting. And something else I wanted to ask you about is you wrote recently that cash basis accounting is hope based leadership. Can you unpack that for our listeners?
Okay, this is where the nerd comes out, Harry.
Hey,
Um,
I'm here for it.
so in the dental industry, one of the greatest tragedies that's currently occurring is that dental groups are not using accrual accounting. They're just going based on, cash basis, financial information. And it's the absolute wrong way to run your business. I mean, Warren Buffett would never invest in a business that wasn't on accrual accounting. But in dentistry, for whatever reason, a lot of the operators just neglect it. The best way to run a business is by being on accrual accounting. It gives you the most accurate information. It allows you to make better decisions. It allows you to plan for the future better, and it allows you to drive, more cash flow through your system. And so I'm kind of passionate about this one. This is a big deal, and the name AccruDent of our business, it's around because we knew we were going to be talking to a lot of people about accrual accounting and helping them get converted to that.
Okay, can you speak to us as to how it works? Um, Say you've brought on someone as a new client, they're trying to take themselves to the next level. What would your relationship look like with them?
Sure. So the way that it starts out is we need to do the full conversion, and this will usually take us somewhere between 1 to 2 months from the time that we engage, because we need to go in and do a lot of homework and get into the practice management softwares, figure out how to pull the data, where it's at, and everything else. So at the beginning, the client doesn't really do much. We just give them updates as we're going along. We get the conversion done. Once that's finished up, then we can hand it off to the client, and then they can do all of the bookkeeping components if they have a team that does that, or if they don't, then we can actually take that on for them and just keep that up and running.
Nice. And you're bringing 20 years of CFO judgment. Um, Dallin brings the cybersecurity background uh, and the technical IP, obviously. How does that actually split day to day for you guys?
Um, it's an interesting question because we tend to like sort of hand things back and forth based on where we're at with the client and what their need is. And then if it's a technical element, then he's going to take the lead on that and make sure that that gets handled correctly. If it's anything else with the client about growth and how to build the business and those sorts of things, those are the conversations that I'm in.
Okay, so it's a good yin and yang of passing information to each other, playing to each other's strengths. And you mentioned to me before, when you're in it with a client, pulling clean data out of dental practice management software is genuinely a nightmare. Darlin's been building proprietary IP to solve it without giving away the secret sauce. What is the actual problem there?
So the actual problem is that the practice management software is not super user friendly.
Yeah.
And so what we find is that we'll work with a client that is on a certain software, and then we'll say, "Oh, wow, okay, they're using it this way." And so then we have to, in our IP, we have to go in and we have to undo a bunch of stuff because everybody's using the software differently, which I know that it sounds totally ludicrous, but it creates a ton of inconsistency throughout the entire business. And in fact, there's a really large group that is right now trying to go through some financial auditing and things like that, and they just have got themselves in a lot of trouble because they have multiple of these practice management software systems, and other people were running these businesses before they bought them, and the way they did it is much different than the way the other one did it. And so to actually get everything to come together and be able to do an audited financial statement was just a Herculean effort.
Yeah. Have you not been using AI to join the different systems up together and then present it in a more visual, easy, digestible format?
We're getting more and more to that.
Okay.
Absolutely. Because the first thing you gotta do is you gotta have that infrastructure underneath and make sure that everything is actually accurate, and then we can start to pretty things up as we go.
Okay. And your thesis is Accrual accounting plus FP&A plus CFO leadership. Why is Accrual specifically the leverage point, and why are most groups still on cash when they reach you?
Sure. So, here's the thing. If you want to try to grow in at any level, you need accurate information to be able to look at about like what's happening in your business and what's happened in the past. And when you have accurate information in the past, that allows you to forecast into the future much more accurately. And ultimately, again, if I have my 5 dental locations and I want to go to 10, I'm going to have to deploy a lot of cash. I'm going to have to do a lot of initiatives to make all that stuff come together. And the only way I can do it safely and not run out of cash is if I've got good information that allows me to project and to put forward looking models together that help us see how can we best grow the business.
I think forecasting is king in whatever you do. You can understand where your business is going and how to get there along the way because you know what money is coming in, what money is going. Your clients are ultimately building enterprise value for an exit. Where do founders typically think their business is worth versus where a sophisticated buyer actually values it?
Boy, that gap can be quite large. Um, and here's the truth. In the dental world, and this is actually true for probably just about any other business, the buyer of your business is going to be looking at your business through a very tiny keyhole of your financial statements and your financial information. So if there's any inaccuracies, if there's anything that's amiss, if there's anything that doesn't make sense, valuation goes down an order of magnitude each time that something just doesn't make sense or it's not right. And so when you go through a process and you want to try to monetize on the enterprise value that you've been working so hard to build, it's a critical step to make sure that everything is cleaned up, everything's accurate, it's right, it's on accrual, and a buyer would be able to look at it and be able to say two things: "Wow, this is a very clean business," and then number two, "Wow, there's a lot of meat on the bone here," meaning you guys have a good growth platform. We're excited about partnering with you because we want to be a part of that growth in the future.
Okay. And if a founder is 2 or 3 years from a sale, what are the one or two things, if they get them right starting today, that materially change what the business is worth at exit?
Yeah, good question. Again, because I'm biased, getting on accrual as soon as possible is super valuable because the longer you have it, the value of it compounds because it's been in place for a long period of time versus, hey, we're a month away from needing to do this. Let's slap this together, slap it all into one little thing and then push it over. You're gonna be losing enterprise value as a result of doing that. So it's the sooner that you can put some of these tools in place and they get really locked down and clear and more and as trustworthy as they could ever be, those are the types of things that somebody 2 years 3 years out could get a great benefit from.
Okay. And just for our listeners who don't know what accounting is, can you just give us a top down high level view?
Sure. So accrual accounting looks at the financial information that's generated on a monthly basis, and it organizes all of that information in a way that allows you to see accurately what's happening in your business. If you're on cash basis, all that means is that when you look at your financial statements, it's just a record of what's going in and out of your bank account. Well, if you have any type of complexity in your business, which most businesses do, you don't you're not able to like finish right at the end of the month on something and it's going to carry over, or you're going to have some prepayments that happen and you have different elements of this that when you look at your financial statements are just not right. And so when we put accrual accounting in place, we actually go through and we sift through all that information so that everything is booked in the right time period. Everything's booked in the right place. Accounts receivable is accurate and the aging of those receivables are accurate. And all of that brings this, this puzzle together that allows us to see what's actually happening in the business, not how much is coming in and out of the bank.
Much more thorough.
Yes.
Much more thorough. And I haven't actually heard of Accrual accounting since I went to university. That's how long it's been since I've heard that term, and it's amazing. Um, so looking at, say, the upcoming book that's coming out, take it you're very excited, and I believe you're interviewing dental founders as we speak. What's the most consistent thing you're hearing that you potentially didn't expect going in?
What I'm hearing that surprises me is how little people are educated about what private equity is and about what selling a business is about. N I can't blame anybody because if you think about it, if you're a dentist and you build a nice group of dental practices, nobody taught you how to sell it. Nobody taught you how to monetize it and how to do all those sorts of things. And so, I think that's, I don't know if that's a helpful way to say it or
100%. It's like it's similar in a lot of industries, you're a dentist by profession. You haven't just come out of university and done a business degree, for example.
Yep.
You're fantastic at making someone's teeth look better, but what do you really know about growing a business other than learning from your peers and what's around you? So the education piece is going to become bigger and bigger, especially as there's probably more and more competition. What's interesting in the UK wise right now around around competition is obviously we have the NHS. So the NHS is a free service, and it's making it harder and harder for specialized dentists to get recognition and get more customers in, because the dentist in the NHS can offer not only dental work but also hygienist work as well. So you're not going for someone and paying for a specialist and hygienist, because you can just get the same doctor to do the hygienist work, where it wouldn't be as good as the specialist. But that's a problem that's ongoing. 'Cause it's very funny actually. I'd been to see my dentist who I'd done the Invisalign with, and they reached out to me, and we got talking about what I was doing with 1760, and he reached out to me saying, "Harry, I need help bringing on some more clients." And I said, "Let's have a look at what we can do." And he said, and I said, "What's the problem?" And he explained it to me, and it's just very interesting to hear,
Mhm.
because the very different level playing fields in the US at the moment.
Yep. Yeah, that's right.
So the first book you said put you on the map, basically. What did that mean for the business in the 12 months after?
Well, at that point in time, actually, I didn't have my own independent business. So it was great personal it ended up being great personal branding.
Okay, awesome. What led you to write it in the first place?
Um, so I had been, um, exposed to a lot of different dental entrepreneurs that were trying to figure out how to grow. And they started to ask me more and more questions. Hey, Ken, how do I do this? How do I do this? And started to get like stage time and podcasts and different things like that. And as I thought about it, because all these questions were coming at me, and I thought, you know what, I could probably sort of package up all these questions in the way that I'm answering them, and it could probably turn into a book, so that I don't have to keep explaining it over and over again. They can buy the book, read the book, and get to it. Of course, that was a pretty lofty thought and goal at the time, but then we started to explore it, and then the opportunity presented itself for us to be able to do it.
Amazing. And so what's the second book trying to do in the market that the first one potentially didn't?
So the second book is attempting to educate the entire dental market about private equity, about what it is, how it works, what's good, what's bad, and everything else that goes with it. And like you said, most dentists didn't go to business school. They don't know how these things work, and so we're writing a book. It's in a narrative format. My daughter's who wrote the last book with me. She is a novelist, and so we're writing it as a really nice story that any dental entrepreneur can pick up, read, and walk away and say, "Whoa, I now understand what private equity is. I understand the role they play in our industry, and I am going to feel very confident when it's time for me. If I ever need to go down that road of selling to private equity, I'm going to know how to do it."
Amazing. So it's hugely an education piece. And
Absolutely.
are you going to use it as a potential lead or revenue driver for AccruDent?
Oh, definitely, yes. um, We're still actually thinking about how we would want to do that, and part of us just wants to sit back and sort of watch and see what happens and what questions come, from, the actual, launching of the book. But, I think that there's gonna be quite a bit of consulting opportunity, that will be there, and also we'll just be continuing to to pound our drum of you need to be on accrual accounting, especially if you think you're ever gonna do an event, you need to get there as soon as possible because that's how you maximize your value.
Amazing. I'm excited for it to release. Um, so moving into, I have one final section to talk to you about, and this has been awesome so far, Ken. So I want to talk about AI and the modern CFO. Your November episode was titled "The Truth About AI Every Dental Practice Owner Must Hear." For the listener who hasn't heard it, what was the truth that you landed on?
So, the truth here is that the craze with AI, um, well, I think people were when it first came out, I think everybody was just excited about it. Um, there's still a lot of stuff that from a CFO perspective, from a financial perspective of running a business, there is a lot. What I should say is there's a big gap between what it can do and what it can't. and why you still need to have a CFO, why you still need to have a controller or bookkeeper or those types of things doing that work for you. I think we will get there, but it's gonna be a while.
Yeah, it's going to take some refining. Like I think we spoke about this before. AI isn't a magic wand. It's about the strategy that goes into it. Uh, and from the CFO seat across 20 years, where is AI genuinely changing the work right now, and where is it still kind of mostly noise? Do you think?
Yeah. So right now, the noise, at least in the dental industry, the noise is that everybody's spinning up something that has the word AI in it, and then they're trying to launch it and monetize it, and it is super messy, and it is very difficult, and
Yeah,
sometimes you have a dental group, and they're not sophisticated enough yet to be able to handle what it's bringing, and then in other instances, it's just, it just doesn't work, and one of the places that, everyone started was, "Well, let's have AI start answering the phones when patients call," and it's like, "Ah,
that
yes."
relates that relates back to your first point around that experience when you get to a dental clinic. The experience starts before that walking in the door experience starts when you pick up the phone. I think
Exactly.
that's already tarnishing it if you're having an AI bot confused on the other end of the line, or you generally have emergency, you need to speak to someone. So very interesting. I like how we've come full circle there.
There you go.
So a DSO founder asks you tomorrow, should we be using AI inside our finance function? What do you tell them?
It's not time yet. It's just not there. I don't know when it is, and I'm not gonna put myself out as a total expert or a forecaster of it, but we are not there yet. And in fact, because most dental groups that we know of and that we help and work with, they're not even doing their basic bookkeeping and keeping up with that. There's still a lot of room here.
Okay. So my two final questions are: where do you see AccruDent in the next 3 to 5 years, if all
Yeah,
things go
so
well?
good question. I think that technology is going to continue to change. AI is going to start to make some dents in some different things. Um, but at the end of the day, the founders are going to be inundated with information, and I see us as being a voice of reason in the dental industry to make sure that everybody's looking at and thinking about the right things. They're going to create the best outcomes for patients and the best outcomes for ultimately their enterprise value.
Okay. And do you know what I'm thinking about? I'm thinking about how much your book is going to help. And it's such a good opportunity because it's that young emerging entrepreneur who wants to take their business to the next level. The book's going to help guide them, and it's going to guide them to yourself. So I think this is a fantastic opportunity for you to kick on and grow from here. And lastly, my favorite question that I was going to ask you is, with unlimited resources and unlimited budget, what's the next thing that you would do with AccruDent?
That's a great question because I feel like we're doing it. I feel like the initiatives that we're putting out right now are the things that we feel like are the best way for us to continue to try to have impact in our industry. So I don't know, that might not be the best answer to it all, but I do see um I do see some opportunities where we can do some licensing. I do see opportunities where I think we can just continue to increase our impact.
Fantastic. And look, this has been genuinely a fantastic conversation. What strikes me the most that I've been realizing as we're going through this is AccruDent is doing the same job for emerging DSOs that we're kind of doing for founder-led healthcare and service businesses. So it's an interesting cross of the wires, so to speak. But
That's
Ken, thank you so much for coming on. This has been awesome. I've learned so much. I will include a link below to AccruDent, and thank you so much for coming on.
It's been an absolute pleasure. You're a great conversationalist, and it was a fun time.
Awesome. Cheers, Ken.